Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something that fuels a lot of our days, coffee pods.
hmm
But hold on, this isn't just about that quick shot of caffeine. We're actually going to explore the surprising dynamics of the market behind these little capsules, what's making it tick, and where it's headed.
Exactly. We've been digging through a detailed market research report from Cognitive Market Research, released earlier this year,
Mhm.
updated in April,
Okay.
and it's just brimming with data.
Mm.
So our goal today is really to pull out the most, well, fascinating insights for you, the kind of stuff that gives you a real feel for what's actually going on.
So the questions we're really trying to answer are, what's the real engine driving the growth of this seemingly simple way to get your coffee fix?
Right.
What are the key trends that someone who, wants to be in the know should be paying attention to? And ultimately, what does the future look like for this, well, dominant form of at-home brewing?
Okay, let's kick things off with some big numbers that really paint the picture. In 2024, the global coffee pot market was valued at a pretty substantial USD 39,524.5 million.
Wow. Okay.
Now, here's where it gets interesting. Projections show this reaching, get this, USD 62,996.0 million by 2032.
63 billion.
Almost. That's a compound annual growth rate, a CIGR, of 6.00%. So like you said, this isn't just about convenience or laziness even. There's some serious momentum here.
Yeah, a 6% growth rate is pretty significant. What fundamental market forces do you think are really driving that kind of growth?
Well, the obvious starting point, the one everyone thinks of, is convenience, right?
Sure. For busy folks, yeah. It's the speed and the reliable result. You want that consistent cup without, the fuss of grinding and measuring every morning.
Precisely. And the report really emphasizes that this convenience factor is, well, it's amplified by the increasing popularity of brewing coffee at home.
Right. More people working from home, too, maybe.
Could be part of it. More people are definitely investing in these single-serve coffee machines. We're talking brands like, Keurig and Espresso. They basically created the whole home pod system as we know it.
Yeah, they made it incredibly easy to just pop in a pot and go.
Exactly. So if you value a, let's say, streamlined morning routine and a guaranteed decent cup, this trend hits home.
But it feels like it's moving beyond just speed now. I've definitely noticed the variety and quality seem to be stepping up quite a bit.
Absolutely. And that's fascinating. The report talks about this growing demand for what they call premiumization and customization.
Okay.
It's not just about getting a quick caffeine hit anymore. Consumers are increasingly seeking out specialty coffees, organic options, even in pod form.
So catering to the coffee snobs among us, even with pods.
Sort of. It's about delivering that more refined coffee experience, one capsule at a time.
That makes sense. I mean, you definitely see a wider array. Now, single origin coffees, interesting blends, fair trade certifications popping up in the pod aisle.
Exactly. So if you enjoy exploring different coffee profiles, it really sounds like the pod market is evolving to meet those more discerning tastes.
Yeah.
And the report also highlights just the sheer expanding range of flavors available now.
Hmm.
It's way beyond your basic medium roast. We've got vanilla, caramel, seasonal stuff.
All sorts. Now, something I've been hearing more and more about, and frankly wondering about myself, is the environmental angle. All those individual pods,
Mm.
it raises a big question about sustainability, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And this is a critical trend the report really underscores. The sustainability imperative. There's growing pressure from consumers for more environmentally responsible options.
People are thinking about where that pod goes after the coffee's brewed.
Definitely. They're more conscious about the life cycle.
So what's happening? What solutions are actually emerging to address this? Because it feels like a big problem.
Well, a key trend is the development and, crucially, the adoption of recyclable and even biodegradable pods. The report specifically points out that the big industry players, like Nestle SA and Keurig Dr. Pepper Inc., they're making significant investments in R&D in this area.
But are these recyclable options, I mean, are they truly scalable? Are they accessible enough to really make a dent in the environmental impact? Or are we still facing a major waste issue here?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's good that the big players are investing. That's a positive sign.
Yeah. So if environmental impact is a concern for you as a consumer, it seems like the industry is at least starting to take it seriously, which is good.
Precisely. Now, Let's maybe broaden our view a bit and look at the global picture. Where is this coffee pod phenomenon really taking hold? The report has a really interesting breakdown of the regional dynamics.
Okay, lay it on us. Where in the world are coffee pods most popular?
Right, so in 2024, North America actually held the largest slice of the pie, roughly 35% of the global market.
Okay, not surprising maybe.
Yeah, it's largely attributed to that strong consumer demand for premium coffee we talked about,
Mm.
and, well, the fact that single-serve machines are just everywhere here.
Right. That aligns with what you see. What about Europe? Big coffee drinkers there too.
Europe also holds a really significant market share, around 30%. The report calls out Germany, France, and the UK as key markets within Europe.
Okay. So the established coffee drinking regions are still major players, but what about areas where maybe coffee culture is newer or still, developing?
This is where the growth story gets particularly compelling. The Asia-Pacific region is experiencing really rapid expansion.
Oh, interesting.
The report projects a compound annual growth rate of 8% just through 2025 for that region.
8%. Wow.
Yeah. China and Japan are highlighted as key growth areas. It's down to their increasingly vibrant coffee culture and just the rising adoption of these single-serve machines, especially in the big growing urban centers.
So what was their share? You said North America was 35, Europe 30.
Asia-Pacic's market share in 2024 was around 20%, but it's expected to jump to 23% just by 2025.
That's a huge leap in 1 year. An 8% CAGR in Asia Pacific? That's incredible.
What's driving that specifically? Is it just new people trying coffee, or are existing coffee drinkers switching over to pods?
It seems like a mix, but that convenience factor really resonates strongly in Asia's fast-paced, burgeoning coffee markets. So yeah, depending on where you are or if you're interested in global economic trends, these regional differences offer some really valuable perspective.
Definitely. Okay, so let's talk about the companies behind all this. Who's actually making these billions of coffee pods? Who are the giants?
Right, the competitive landscape. The report identifies a few key players who held really significant market share back in 2024. Keurig Dr. Pepper Inc. was leading the pack with about 15%,
Okay.
followed by Nestle SA, the Nespresso folks primarily, with around 13%, and then the Kraft Heinz Company with about 10%.
Those are definitely some household names. What gives them such a strong grip on the market? Is it just history? Well, history plays a part, but the report emphasizes their strong brand recognition, like you said, household names. Consumers know and trust them.
Okay.
They also boast really extensive product, offering something for almost everyone. And crucially, they make these substantial investments in R&D to stay ahead.
Right, the innovation piece. And is this competitive landscape expected to stay the same? Or are things shifting?
The expectations is that we'll likely see further shifts, actually, probably by 2025 even.
Oh.
Increased competition, combined with that growing consumer focus on sustainability and premium options we keep mentioning, that could definitely lead to changes in market share.
So maybe smaller players grabbing a niche, or the big guys having to adapt quickly.
Exactly. We might see smaller, maybe more specialized companies carving out niches, or the larger companies adapting their strategies, perhaps through acquisitions or just new product lines, to maintain their dominance.
Interesting. It sounds like even in a seemingly simple product category, there's a lot of strategic maneuvering going on behind the scenes. Now, you mentioned research and development, R&D, a couple of times. What kind of technological advancements are actually shaping this industry?
This is where that blend of convenience and quality really comes together. The report highlights ongoing innovations in, well, two main areas. The single-serve coffee makers themselves and the actual quality and design of the pods.
So smarter machines, maybe. Machines that can get even better flavor out of the pods.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And advancements in the pod technologies themselves are just as important. Things like improved sealing techniques to keep the coffee fresher for longer,
Okay.
and more sophisticated pressure control systems, sometimes built right into the pod design, that make a noticeable difference in the extraction and the quality of the final cup.
Huh. So these aren't just simple plastic cups with grounds anymore. There's real tech involved.
Increasingly, yes. These advancements mean you can achieve a genuinely high-quality cup of coffee with the push-button ease of a single-serve system.
Which is kind of the holy grail, right? Convenience and quality.
Pretty much. And this brings us nicely to some of the emerging opportunities that the report points to. We've already touched on what's arguably the most significant one.
Let me guess, it involves being nicer to the planet.
You got it. The development and, crucially, the widespread adoption of eco-friendly pods are consistently identified as a key opportunity.
Makes sense.
It aligns perfectly with that rising consumer demand for sustainable products we discussed. And, as we said, the major players are dedicating serious resources, R&D dollars, to this.
Yeah, solve the environmental problem or at least mitigate it significantly, and you unlock a huge potential market segment, I imagine.
Exactly.
I
And
mean,
it's not just about the pod materials, interestingly. The report mentions advancements in the brewing systems, the machines themselves, being developed to specifically optimize flavor extraction from these sustainable pod materials.
oh, that's clever. So you don't have to compromise on taste to be green.
That's the goal, making them an even more attractive option. It removes a potential barrier for consumers.
That's a huge potential win. Yeah. What other opportunities are bubbling up in the coffee pod market?
Well, there's the continued growth in demand for those premium and specialty coffee pods, offering a broader, more diverse range of flavors, origins, roast profiles. That's another significant opportunity.
People's coffee palates are getting more sophisticated.
They are. As consumers become more educated and, frankly, more discerning about their coffee, they're looking for that reflected in their pod choices, too.
And I guess the fundamental appeal, the convenience, that remains a powerful driver, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The report stresses that convenience and ease of use continue to be incredibly important factors. And it's not just in our kitchens.
Right.
This extends beyond households. Think offices, hotels, the hospitality industry in general. That sector represents a substantial chunk of the market, roughly 15% of total revenue in 2024.
15%. Wow.
Yeah, and it's projected for strong continued growth, too.
So those little single-serve machines in hotel rooms and office break rooms, they're actually a more significant piece of this whole puzzle than I might have realized.
Definitely a key segment. Now, of course, with all this expansion and potential, there are bound to be some hurdles and challenges.
Yep.
What challenges does the coffee pod market currently face, according to the report?
Well, let's circle back to the obvious one, the environmental issue. Even with new options emerging, the sheer volume of traditional, non-recyclable plastic and aluminum pods still ending up in landfills, that has to be a major, major challenge.
It is. The report explicitly identifies the environmental impact of traditional pods as a key challenge. Progress is being made, yes, but the scale of the existing problem, the legacy waste, is still significant.
And I imagine developing and producing those eco-friendly alternatives, the biodegradable or better recyclable ones, that likely comes with added costs, right?
That's the second major challenge highlighted.
Yeah.
The higher production costs associated with these greener pods. And that can potentially impact their affordability for some consumers. It creates a bit of a price sensitivity issue. So you have this balancing act between being responsible and keeping costs manageable.
Makes sense. What else presents a challenge?
Well, you touched on it earlier, perhaps the price point of some of those really premium coffee pods.
Yeah, while some people are happy to pay more for a fancy single origin pod, it might put them out of reach for a lot of regular coffee drinkers.
Exactly. The report points to concerns over the cost of premium pods for certain segments. And finally, it mentions just the continuous need for innovation in what's become a highly competitive market.
Always needing the next new thing.
Pretty much, which naturally drives up those research and development expenses for the manufacturers we talked about earlier.
So it sounds like a constant juggling act trying to innovate, manage costs, meet sustainability demands, and fight off competitors.
That sums it up pretty well.
Okay, so looking ahead then, what kind of future developments does the report anticipate? What's next for the coffee pod space?
Well, the report actually gives a pretty tangible recent example of the premium trend continuing. The November 2024 launch of Victor Allen's high-quality premium coffee pods.
Okay.
It was a big 60-count variety pack designed for compatibility with most machines. It just underscores that ongoing push towards premium offerings aimed at a broad audience.
So more brands trying to capture that premium ground. Makes sense. What about the pods themselves, the actual physical pods? Any expected changes there?
Oh, absolutely. We can anticipate continued advancements in developing more sustainable pod materials. Think fully compostable options becoming more common, or maybe even more efficient and, crucially, more widely accessible recyclable solutions.
Better materials.
Yeah, the material science behind these pods is likely to evolve quite rapidly, driven by both regulation and consumer demand.
That's really encouraging to hear. And I imagine the brewing experience itself, the coffee quality, will also continue to improve alongside that.
Definitely. Expect to see further refinements in the actual pod design. Things aimed at achieving even better sealing for optimal freshness. Maybe enhanced flavor extraction mechanisms built in somehow, maximizing the quality you get from that pod.
Interesting. What about how we actually buy our coffee pods? Any shifts expected there?
The report suggests an increasing emphasis on personalization and customization.
Like,
Well, we're already seeing the rise of subscription services, right? Letting consumers tailor their orders to their specific tastes, maybe mixing and matching, getting regular deliveries. That trend is expected to gain even more traction.
yeah, that makes sense. Getting your favorite brews just showing up at your doorstep. Convenience again.
Exactly. And looking globally again,
Yeah.
where do we expect the most future activity, the biggest growth? The growth opportunities in those emerging markets, particularly Asia Pacific, like we discussed, and also Latin America, they are seen as substantial. As urbanization continues and that premium coffee culture really takes root and expands in these regions, they represent a significant, largely untapped potential for the coffee pod market.
Okay, so to kind of wrap up our deep dive today, the coffee pod market is seeing really significant growth. It's fueled by, yes, our desire for convenience, but increasingly also for quality.
Hmm.
A really critical factor shaping its future is how the industry responds to this growing demand for sustainable, eco-friendly solutions.
Definitely.
And while a few big players dominate the competitive landscape right now, that ongoing innovation, especially around ecopods and premium offerings, is creating both new opportunities and some persistent challenges.
That's a great summary. It's pretty remarkable how this seemingly simple way to brew a cup of coffee has turned into such a complex and dynamic global industry.
It really is. So let's leave our listeners with this to maybe ponder. As technology continues its relentless march forward and environmental awareness becomes an even stronger force, how might your own daily coffee ritual actually evolve in the next, say, decade?
Yeah.
Will we see a future dominated by fully compostable, hyper-personalized coffee pods, maybe delivered by drones? Or could entirely new brewing technologies emerge and potentially disrupt this whole single-serve market as we know it today?
It's a thought-provoking question for sure. And maybe on a more immediate level, perhaps this deep dive has just inspired you to take a closer look at your own coffee pot habits.
Yeah, maybe check the packaging next time.
Exactly. Look into the sustainability initiatives, or lack thereof, of your preferred brands.
Absolutely. Staying informed, even about something as seemingly routine as our morning coffee, can really illuminate these fascinating trends and the powerful forces of innovation that are constantly shaping our world. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.